Recently, it's been rumored that a new Batman Arkham game could be in development from Rocksteady Studios. Now, whether or not this would be a prequel to Asylum, some sort of reboot, or maybe even something like a Batman Beyond game set well after Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League is currently up in the air, as all of those scenarios are certainly in the playing cards and have been rumored in the past, but most recent reporting seems to suggest some stories centered around Bruce Wayne as Batman, which I know to some may sound a bit boring, and I understand that because we've already gotten a lot of Bruce Wayne focused Batman games over the last 2 decades, and many others, including myself, have been clamoring for DC to try something new and give other heroes or villains even a chance with their own game. But I do think if this is true and we are set to be getting another Batman game with Bruce Wayne wearing the cowl, let's be honest, we're still going to be excited about it because it's Batman. But I do think there's a lot of things that Rocksteady could do in a brand new Arkham installment that would make the game feel fresh, different, and new and worth making, even if it's going to have a very similar protagonist. And today I want to talk about a bunch of different things that I would like to see from the next Batman Arkham game. To kick off, let's start with the Batcave, which is something that of course is iconic for Batman and in my opinion was something extremely lacking from previous Arkham games. However, if I'm being honest, it didn't really bother me all that much, as Batman was trapped either in Arkham Asylum or Arkham City, and in Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight, he was having these nights from hell that were unrelentless and didn't really allow for much time to get away from the action and go back to the Batcave. However, now, after playing LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight, I simply cannot accept a new Arkham game that does not make the Batcave more of a focal point. Now, to be clear, I'm not expecting something identical to what we get in LEGO Batman, because that game gets to span over years of Batman's career and has in-depth customization features that are awesome, but ultimately not necessary in my opinion, especially for something like an Arkham game. But I definitely want the Batcave to play a larger role and become a hub for things like training, upgrades, investigation, and simply be a location that you can access with more frequency throughout the game. For example, I would love if suit and gadget upgrades were only possible by going back to the Batcave, or perhaps there are certain investigative things that you could only do back in the Batcave, whether that is running certain experiments or accessing the Bat computer. Now, I do understand that you have characters like Alfred or Barbara to help, but I do think these things could give the Batcave a bit more of a purpose, as well as make you who is playing Batman take on a larger role in the actual investigation part of the game. Of course, I would also love things like trophies and customization, but they certainly are not as important as things like giving the Batcave a true role in the overall gameplay and even story of the game. Number 2 on my list is please no Joker. Now, I totally understand how important the Joker is to Batman, and in no way am I trying to diss the character Joker, because I truly do believe Joker is one of the best comic book characters of all time, but there are a lot of amazing Batman villains, not named the Joker, that I would love to see get the spotlight in a brand new game, and I am 100% confident we can make an amazing game without featuring the Joker at all. I mean, honestly, it's a little ridiculous that the Joker has basically served as the main antagonist, or at minimum the second main antagonist, in all 4 of these Arkham games. Now, I'm not going to make any specific requests as to who I think needs to be the quote-unquote main villain of the next Arkham game, because truthfully, I don't care. There are so many amazing Batman villains that Rocksteady could choose from. All I ask is please no Joker. Now, this third one is a little bit dependent on what time in Batman's career they are going to go with, but I'm still going to ask for it anyway, and that is a more expanded and important role for the Bat Family. I do not want the Bat Family to just show up in a mission or two or for some DLC. I want them to be full-fledged characters in the game with their own arcs, missions, and purpose. Of course, Batman would still be the main character, and the majority of the missions in the game would need to be centered on the Dark Knight, but the Bat Family is filled with a lot of amazing characters that I know a lot of fans want to see done right, and I think they would serve as an amazing supporting cast for an Arkham game, not only in terms of things like story and character arcs, but they could also help diversify the gameplay of an Arkham game, because no member of the Bat Family really fights the exact same. They all have their own unique tools and weapons and own personalities as well in terms of how they fight and how they just carry themselves, that I think would help diversify gameplay and not make it feel so stale, which is something that I do think can happen in Arkham games because it becomes a bit too repetitive and easy. As well as flat out, these are just some of the best characters in DC Comics, and sidelining them feels like just a huge missed opportunity. I have absolutely adored the past Arkham games. It is by far and away my most favorite franchise in gaming of all time, but one of the biggest disappointments of the Arkham franchise is the fact that we never really got a full-fledged Bat Family game, and I would love if the next Arkham game truly was that. Another thing that I would really like to see in a new Arkham game is more vehicles as a form of transportation without the burden of having to use them in a bunch of missions. Now, obviously, I am no game designer, so I cannot speak to as to how difficult it would be to include a bunch of different vehicles into a game like this, so I would not be shocked if there's an argument to be made from a developer that the juice is simply not worth the squeeze when it comes to including something like the Batwing, but damn it, I've always dreamed of having the opportunity to use something like the Batwing or the Batboat in an Arkham game, so I once again am going to ask for it in the next game. But like I said earlier, I do not want these things to be force-fed to me in missions so that I get burnt out by them and get disgusted by the sight of them by the end of the game. I simply want them as cool toys you can unlock and use to navigate Gotham that I am sure will be the largest we have ever seen. Now, if there's a Batmobile chase or two, or some story purpose for the Batwing, I'm totally cool with that. 1 or 2 missions per vehicle is completely understandable, and if done correctly, could even be amazing, but I am still scarred from Arkham Knight and all of those tank battles that truthfully make me want to pull my hair out every time I replay Arkham Knight, which is so damn fun to play because the combat and the graphics are so smooth, but those damn tank battles make me want to turn off my PS5 every damn time. Now remember when I said I expect this Gotham to most likely be the biggest Gotham that we have gotten in any game yet, and even though I do think that is something I absolutely want to see, and for the open world it almost feels like a necessity with today's hardware and the standard of so many amazing open worlds that we have received in recent years, but what I think is the most important thing for the open world in the next game is the feeling of it actually being a living city that we need to protect. No more excuses for why the city is just filled with criminals and cops. I understand what Rocksteady and WB Games Montreal were doing in previous Arkham games, and I'm sure there's something story-wise that they could do in a future Arkham game to make it feel once again like a wasteland where criminals and cops battle with little collateral damage, but I really want Gotham to be a living and breathing city that feels like it needs protecting. Now I get Gotham is an absolute hellhole, and if you were a smart citizen, you probably would not be out at night. But even in the most dangerous cities, there are plenty of people out living their lives, working, partying, or doing whatever regardless of what is actually happening outside, and I want Gotham to feel like an actual city. I think having a more populated city would give for far more interesting active crime opportunities, more spontaneous side missions perhaps, and it would also help enhance the immersion, making the gamer feel like Batman protecting a Gotham City that actually needs protecting. One of the areas that I thought Rocksteady really dropped the ball in Arkham Knight was the boss fights, and I'm really hoping in the next Arkham game they take the time to make them more in-depth, unique, and challenging, whether that is in terms of the strategy and forcing the gamer to be a bit more cerebral, or the actual combat itself. And this is something that I'm 100% confident that Rocksteady can absolutely deliver, as they have done an amazing job in the past with boss fights in previous Arkham games, most notably Arkham City, which I thought was filled with a bunch of fun and unique boss fights and was highlighted with one of my favorite boss fights of all time, that of course being the Mr. Freeze boss fight. Arkham Origins also had a bunch of fun ones as well, so I know for a fact that they can be done well in these Arkham games, and hopefully the next Arkham game delivers more boss fights that feel unique to whatever villain you are specifically fighting, and hopefully by making them more personalized, they do not become as repetitive or stale. Also, I just want a higher volume of boss fights as well. One area of past Arkham games that I definitely think can be improved upon in the next game is the investigative work. I want Rocksteady to put an emphasis on the world's greatest detective aspect of Batman's character by not only making investigation a larger part of the game with more opportunities, but I would also love if they increased the difficulty a little bit. Do not get me wrong, in previous Arkham games there were some cool investigative moments. For example, I absolutely loved taking different clues and recreating what happened at a specific crime scene, or tracing a bullet's trajectory to see where you have to investigate next. But I think we can all admit that all of the investigative work in previous Arkham games has been super easy, and I would love for a bigger challenge in the next game. I know to some that may sound potentially tedious or annoying, which I totally understand, but there have been plenty of games over the years that have done much more intense puzzles and investigative work, but have made those things fun and entertaining, and I truly believe Rocksteady could also deliver that. Now lastly, even though earlier in this video I said I will not say who I think needs to be the main villain of the next Arkham game, I do want to talk about a few villains that I would love to see. First off, a personal favorite of mine that I think would be perfect for a side mission, and that is the Ventriloquist. Scarface is such a unique and fun character that just feels perfect for something like an Arkham game. KG Beast is somebody who I think could provide an awesome combat challenge for Batman and serve as a great boss fight. Killer Moth is a character that I totally understand on the surface can appear to be quite goofy, but when done correctly, I do think he is quite a compelling character, and a video game would be a perfect opportunity to change people's opinions on the character and make him a much more legitimate villain in the eyes of many. And lastly, I think somebody like Ratcatcher could be made into something truly horrific and terrifying and serve as a true horror villain in the next Arkham game. Some of the best moments of the Arkham franchise is when they have leaned a bit into the horror aspect of some of the characters, and I would be fascinated to see what Rocksteady could do with a character like Ratcatcher. However, now I want to know, if there was a brand new Arkham game centered around Bruce Wayne, what would you specifically want to see? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in another video.